Chinese spies disguised as tourists have reportedly tried to infiltrate American military bases as many as 100 times. Washington is on high alert, now sounding the alarm over potential espionage threats as lawmakers raise grave concerns. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. How exactly does China spy on America? And what disguises do they use to conceal it? What do you think? Let us know below and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Chinese nationals, sometimes posing as tourists, have reportedly accessed military bases and other sensitive sites in the U.S. up to 100 times in recent years. They've been dubbed gate crashers because of their attempts to enter without authorization. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on what officials call potential espionage threats.
The Wall Street Journal, citing anonymous U.S. officials, reported that the FBI, Defense Department, and other agencies held a review last year to try to limit the incidents. Gatecrashers ranged from Chinese nationals found crossing into a U.S. missile range in New Mexico to scuba divers swimming in murky waters near a U.S. government rocket launch site in Florida in the close to 100 incidents tracked. Officials say the tactics appear to be aimed at testing security protocols at U.S. military installations and other federal locations. The incidents that occur in rural areas with little tourism typically involved Chinese nationals who officials say are pressed into service and required to report back to the Chinese regime. Concerns over CCP espionage are high after a Chinese spy balloon crossed the U.S. before being shot down earlier this year.
The Chinese government conducts significant espionage activities inside the United States already for a number of years. Whether it's the coercion of a number of Chinese students in colleges in the United States, whether it's spy balloons that we allow to fly over the United States, and frankly, even satellites in outer space that are constantly monitoring the U.S.
Representative Jason Crow, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, says Congress is considering legislation on the issue. That's over fears the growing number of gatecrashers could go unnoticed or be understated, as most trespassing laws are at state and local levels, not federal. Officials familiar with the incident say many of the trespassers are only detained briefly, then escorted out of the U.S. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Here's a recent example of these gate crashers at work. Zooming in on Alaska, where in May, a vehicle full of Chinese nationals was stopped while trying to enter a U.S. military base. A drone was found inside. Some of the Pentagon's most confidential military technology and cutting-edge war strategies are displayed inside this base. A new investigation every 12 hours. That's the rate of Chinese spying in the U.S., estimated by FBI Director Christopher Wray. The agency says China-linked espionage cases have increased by 1,300% over the past decade.
We consistently see that it's the Chinese government that poses the biggest long-term threat to our economic and national security.
Wray says Beijing uses every tool at its disposal to gain a strategic advantage over the U.S. That's including covert theft, forced technology transfers, research exploitation, and cyber hacks.
The Chinese government sees cyber as the pathway to cheat and steal on a massive scale.
So how much of a threat is this? Here's a look at China's history of spying in the U.S. First, Microsoft revealed a big security intrusion by Chinese cyber spies in July. They hacked into email accounts of 25 organizations and a group of U.S. officials, including Commerce Department Secretary Gina Raimondo. Chinese cyber espionage expert James Andrew Lewis describes the current situation as a cyber crisis.
People who think we can be friends with China really need to take a deep breath, though, because the Chinese are the most aggressive espionage agency in the world.
And the world's largest professional networking platform, LinkedIn, has reportedly become Beijing's go-to tool for recruiting spies. Targets include former U.S. government officials.
They will know your interests, your behavior, your geolocation, and they will start regurgitating back to you to shape your behavior.
What's more, earlier last month, 2 U.S. Navy sailors were arrested on charges of selling sensitive military secrets to China.
The charges demonstrate the PRC's determination to obtain information that is critical to our national defense by any means, so it could be used to their advantage.
In both cases, Beijing directed the Navy sailors to hide their conspiracy and destroy evidence of the schemes. Beyond the military, Chinese agents also spied on U.S. trade secrets. Last year, a U.S. court sentenced Chinese Ministry of State Security officer Xu Yanjun to 20 years in prison. He is the first Chinese intelligence agent ever to be extradited to the U.S. after he allegedly targeted employees at icons of the U.S. aerospace industry, including GE, Boeing, and Honeywell. And in May, 2 Chinese agents were charged with bribery directed by Beijing on U.S. soil. They tried to carry out China's aim of, quote, toppling the Falun Gong by trying to bribe an undercover officer who they thought was an IRS agent to revoke federal tax exemptions for a Falun Gong entity. Falun Gong is a meditation practice based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. It's banned in China and has faced a brutal persecution campaign driven by Beijing since 1999. On top of spy agents, Beijing is eyeing eyeing a spy base. According to a report from the Wall Street Journal, in June, China and Cuba have reached a secret agreement for China to set up a military training facility there. Officials warn that could give Beijing the chance to station troops there and tap electronic communications from the U.S. The White House revealed multiple Chinese intel gathering sites have operated since at least 2019 in Cuba, just 100 miles from Florida. In the interview with CNN Politics, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo zeroed in on a recent espionage campaign when Chinese hackers accessed a group of U.S. senior officials' emails, including hers.
As it relates to the hack, I brought it up. I said, we know what's going on, that erodes trust.
She said she spoke to Chinese officials about the matter.
And let them know that it's hard to build trust when you have actions like that.
Hundreds of thousands of official U.S. emails were compromised. Senior diplomats that play critical roles in U.S.-China ties also ended up on the hackers' radar. Among them, U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns and the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, Daniel Crittenbrink. A CNN report said their inboxes might have given Beijing insight into Washington's strategy for a string of planned China trips, including by U.S. Secretary of State Blinken.
So anything that can be hacked will be hacked.
Beyond that, U.S. lawmakers are speaking out about similar hacks. Congressman Don Bacon posted on his social media that he was informed by the FBI that his personal and campaign emails had been hacked over the course of a month this year. He's a vocal supporter of Taiwan and a critic of the Chinese regime. The Chinese hack was first discovered in June, around the time Blinken visited China. Masters of disguise. From business suits to tourist sportswear, China's covert agents are hiding in plain sight. What tactics do they have in their arsenal? And how do they blend seamlessly into the fabric of American society? One of them took the form of a so-called police station. In April, the FBI arrested 2 people for operating a secret police station on behalf of the Chinese regime in the heart of Manhattan.
The secret police station appears to have had a more sinister use.
The Justice Department called the outpost transnational repression by adversaries such as China, with the goal of intimidating political opponents living in the United States.
2 miles from our office, just across the Brooklyn Bridge, this nondescript office building in the heart of bustling Chinatown in Lower Manhattan has a dark secret. Until several months ago, an entire floor of this building hosted an undeclared police station of the Chinese National Police. Now just imagine the NYPD opening an undeclared secret police station in Beijing. It would be unthinkable.
But that's just the tip of a global iceberg of Beijing's overseas operations. The New York Post recently reported that aside from New York, there are 6 more Chinese police stations operating in the U.S. They're based in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Houston, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Safeguard defenders noting there are over 100 of these Chinese overseas stations in 53 countries. Zooming in on another disguise, reporters turned spies. That's according to Chen Kai, an insider who used to work as a reporter for the Chinese regime's state newspaper, The People's Daily. He previously told NTD that a significant number of Chinese state media reporters working outside China are spying for Beijing.
Reporters sent abroad are mainly from Xinhua News Agency, People's Daily. A considerable part of their task is actually doing intelligence work for the CCP.
Cheng says that a lot of state media reporters work under Beijing's intelligence departments.
Chinese intelligence units are heavily engaged in activities outside the country, as reporters for People's Daily or Xinhua News Agency. If you see a reporter from People's Daily or Xinhua News Agency, if they approach you, you have to wonder whether they are an intelligence officer. So Chinese media outlets under the leadership of the party, they are not purely media outlets.
What's more, another Chinese espionage method happens on college campuses and gets touted as a cultural exchange. They're called Confucius Institutes. Funded by Beijing, they're known to push Chinese state propaganda to project soft power in the U.S. They're also central to helping the regime steal American technology and research. The FBI says China steals up to $600 billion worth of U.S. intellectual property every year. New details on a battery maker that's unnerving residents in Michigan. Called Gotion, the firm is set to build a lithium-ion battery plant in the Wolverine state. But how much communist influence does the company carry? A new report is shedding light on the concern. NTD's Juliet Song brings us more.
Over $170 million in taxpayer funding. That's how much Michigan is handing out to a battery maker called Gotion. The funding will help Gotion build a lithium-ion battery plant, critical for making electric cars. But there are concerns about Gotion's China ties. Now, new details reveal that Gotion's parent company in China has a Communist Party committee operating inside it. The parent company also hired over 900 Communist Party members, including its CEO. The Chinese parent company has full control over Gotion. The information comes from a corporate report released by Gotion's Chinese parent company last year. It was first uncovered by news outlet The Daily Caller. What's more, the report said its Communist Party committee directed all members to watch Beijing's 20th National Congress last year and study the communist leaders' speeches. Michigan locals have staged protests against Gotion's new plant. A resident voiced her concerns in an earlier interview.
I don't think that we need to bring that in, invite that in, give them tax incentives to come over here when we're essentially fighting a battle with China on many different levels. So I don't understand why we are bolstering up our enemies, so to speak, instead of choosing a company that would better America, that would help our citizens and hold true to our values.
Lawmakers have also expressed concerns about the plant site of Gotion's factory. It's just 100 miles from Camp Grayling, the largest U.S. National Guard training facility. Juliet Song, NTD News.
China's COVID-19 death rate is back on the rise. Disease control agencies warn the virus is holding its dominance, with many citizens getting infected for a third time. Let's take a closer look.
A COVID-19 variant called EG5 is spreading across parts of China.
Recently, many people are infected for the third time, the third wave. So when you go to the hospital or to a crowded place, I recommend you wear a mask.
In the past 2 months, virus-related deaths have also seen a jump. It's led to speculation about who is most at risk.
I have several friends got infected by COVID-19 for a third time, both older and younger people. And the virus targets all ages all the same. A lot of people, like me, think this stuff, COVID-19, is getting lighter and lighter, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Notable infection cases have included Communist Party members, including high-profile officials, executives, elite scholars, and judicial officers. According to public sources, over a dozen professors from well-known universities in Beijing died of the virus within a span of just 2 weeks. Most of them were described as elite Communist Party members in their obituaries. The variant is also threatening the country's law enforcement bureaus. At least 24 police officers died in August. Many were middle-aged, with the youngest just 23 years old. The majority were chiefs of police. The reports follow a statement about the pandemic from the founder of Falun Gong, Mr. Li Hongzhi. He told the Epoch Times in 2020, a pandemic like the current CCP virus, Wuhan pneumonia, has come with a purpose and with a target. It has come to eliminate the followers of the evil party and those who go along with the evil CCP. The term CCP virus refers to the infection that causes COVID-19. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a discipline rooted in traditional Chinese beliefs and teaches the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance.
Now we move to North Korea. The U.S. says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un expects to meet with President Putin in Russia. The goal, to advance arms negotiations. National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson did not say when a potential meeting between Kim and Putin might take place, but it would follow a visit to North Korea in July by Russia's defense minister. U.S. officials said last week the two countries are advancing weapons talks that could see North Korea providing arms to support Russia's war in Ukraine. The timing of the potential meeting is unclear. The New York Times first reported on it, saying it's expected to take place this month. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 2 years. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Is China losing its influence over Eastern Europe? A brief 15-minute phone conversation seemingly at the root of deteriorating EU-China relations as Taiwan steps in to fill the gap. How did the Czech Republic become one of the island's closest European allies? And what does the shift mean for China's influence in a region that was once under Beijing's spell? We sat down with Antonio Graceffo, China economic analyst, for details. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.